Hey everyone, so in this video we'll show you how to create a very simple app using Vue, Vite, and Deno. Let's get started. So to start, let's use Vite to scaffold a new app. We can use Vite create extra, and here let's just select the name. Let's just do Deno Vue, and down here we can select Deno Vue. And this will create an app for us, and we can take a look at it. We should already be able to run it. And here it is. This is a default app. It's written in Vue. There's some interactivity here, and yeah, the next step here is just to create a backend API, and then we'll build a few components to fetch that data. So stop the server, open the code editor. So you see, this is the scaffolded app. Pretty simple right now. Everything's in a source. So let's create the backend API, and we'll just put everything in this. We'll create a new folder called API, and let's create a file called main.ts. We'll also need to create some data. So let's also do a data.json. So for now, data.json is just going to be a list of objects that will have a name and description attributes. Now this is just going to be a list of dinosaurs, and the data can be found in our example repo. But for now, we'll just go ahead and add a few. And in the future, you could add this to an actual persistent data store service, or a database like MySQL or Postgres. And we'll just add one more. Here we go. Great. So we have 3 dinosaurs in here, and we can go ahead and add the others later. You can pull all that data from our repo. It should all be available there. And now we've got to find a way to serve that data through an API. So that main file is going to be where our server is, and we will use Oak to do our routing. So let's start by getting the application and router from denoland /x/oak, and if you have the autocomplete, it makes it very easy to import things from denoland./x. We also need oak cores, and this is also from a module on /x. And we also need the data that we just created. So we can import JSON just by importing the file, and then adding this part called this part assert type JSON, which is pretty convenient. We'll instantiate a new router, and here is where we'll define the router's routes. So here, for the just the route path, we'll just respond with something that says like, "Welcome to the Dinosaur API." If you've ever used Koa, Oak is a lot like Koa. It's the same kind of control flow with context being passed around. So if you ever use Koa, Oak is easy to get situated with. And for /API, we'll just respond with the entire, with all the dinosaurs. So now let's add a path just to get a single dinosaur. And here we can just use the colon just like in Koa and Express. And here, basically we will just grab the dinosaur from the path. And we can do that by using context params. And we can use the filter function. And we'll just use the name and make sure we have. So we use the name on the item. Make sure we're pointing this thing out using the double arrows, using the name to lowercase, and then compare that to the context. And if there is 0 matches, then we will just return no dinosaurs found. Else, we will say return the first match. Finally, we'll start the app. We'll instantiate the app. We will add the middleware. And then we will start the app. So now let's start the server and see if that works. So there we go. So now going to a single dinosaur in the API route, it will return one dinosaur's name and description. So all that works. Now we can start working on the front end, and with that we can start using Vue with the Vue components. So we can keep this server running, and we can start a second terminal, and in here we can run Deno task dev, and this will just start the front end. If you go here, you'll be able to see the Vue app. And let's get started updating the Vue app. So after we make the API in the main.ts, the next thing is to get rid of everything in your app.vue, and let's just replace it with something bare bones, something very simple, and we can add to it later. First, we'll add a script at the top and a template in the middle. And in the template, we'll also include a router view because we'll be using a router to navigate the site. And at the end, we'll add a style tag. And all the in Vue, every Vue file has three parts. There's the script part, the HTML part, which is the template, and then the style. And this example, we're really just gonna go over tying things together for the functionality, and we won't be touching style as much, but hopefully it'll get you to a place where you can start playing around with it. So because we put router-view, we put this router view component in the template, we'll also have to add it to our config file. So let's go to viteconfig.mjs, and over here we'll have to import it. View router 4, and now this should be and now this will. So after you import view router 4 here, this module should be available in any of the front end components, so we should be able to access it here as well. So before we start working on the components, let's create the router, and we can do that in a new folder here. We'll name that router, and in router, let's create a file called index.ts. Now in here, we'll just import create router and create web history from view router. And no, we don't have to prefix npm here because it's in the config file, so it should be accessible just as is. After view.router, let's import two components we haven't created yet: home page and dinosaur. We'll define the routes. And for each path, we'll have to give it a name as well as the components. And then after that, we can create the router. And then export it. Great. So after we've done that, we can go to main, which is the main file that sets up all the front end components, and we'll need to import router, which is the file that we just created. And then change this so that we can use the router and still mount it on app. So if we try running the app right now, there's going to be a lot of things that don't exist yet. that we'll have to add. So let's go ahead and add that. So if you try running the app right now, you'll see that a lot of these components don't exist yet. So let's go ahead and add these components. There are 3 components that we want to add. The first one's going to be, so first let's get rid of hello world, and we'll add a homepage.view, dinosaurs.view, and dinosaur.view. And the home page is just the entire index page. Dinosaurs is the component that's going to render a list of all the dinosaurs, and dinosaur is just going to render a single dinosaur, which means just the name and the description. And before we actually start writing any of these components, because we will have to manage state between these components, let's also create a new file called store.js. And this file is going to maintain state between these components, basically using view store. And I'll drop a link to that in the comments. But if you want to use something that's more complex for state management, you should check out Pina, which is a view endorsed state management library. But for this example, we'll just use view store. So in view store, we can do something. We can import this reactive function from view. And what this function does is it's going to allow us to define a variable as well as a function that'll update that variable. So we'll pass to this reactive function, we'll pass dinosaur, which is going to be the variable, and a function called setDinosaur, which will take a name and description. And we also need to define this function here. So setDinosaur is it's just a setter, and you can see we're just setting the parameters to the dinosaur up here. So now that we have that, we can go to dinosaurs.view, which is going to be the component that'll list out all the dinosaurs. And so we have the store already. So let's go ahead and import it. And we'll use store to basically set the data of what the user clicked on. So the dinosaur's name and the dinosaur description. And we'll have the setup function, which is going to be a lifecycle function that runs before the component loads. And all this is going to do is fetch from the API endpoint that we created. That's /API. And it's going to return dinosaurs. And we'll also have to expose store, which we'll use to set the dinosaur once the user clicked on it. So in our template, we will render all the dinosaurs, and we can do that using v4. And router link, and we need to use router link because it'll when you click on the link, it'll go to a specific component, and here we let it know which component to go to by giving it a name. And in the router link, we will have a span with the click attribute set to setDinosaur, which we defined in store.js. Basically, when a user clicks on this, then the set dinosaur function will be called, and the name and description of that dinosaur will be set in the store that we can retrieve later. So once you have that all set up, let's work on the dinosaur component, and it's just going to be, so where dinosaurs is like, you list all the dinosaurs, so while dinosaurs will list all the dinosaurs, the dinosaur component will list an individual component, will list an individual dinosaur with name and description. And this will be a pretty simple component because all it's got to do is import store and we'll just use it, we'll expose it the same way as the other component just by using data. And in the template, we'll just keep it as simple as possible. All we need is just store dinosaur name and store dinosaur description. And that's it. This should have all that information because we set it when the user clicked on the dinosaur. And finally, we can update home page, which is, we'll keep it very simple. We'll import dinosaurs. And we will use suspense, which is an asynchronous way to render components based on like a promise or some kind of function that we're waiting a response on. So with suspense, you can set like a default template, and we'll just use dinosaurs here. Basically, if the dinosaurs component loads, it'll go through the default component. Otherwise, we'll use a fallback template, which will just say loading. And before the data appears, we will go through the fallback template. All right, so let's just try it. And it looks like it's loading for a while. Let's open the errors. Missing param dinosaur. And I think what we need to do is here we have to also attach the params. So basically we'll include params dinosaur, and it'll just be dinosaur name to lowercase. Let's see if that works. So now you can see it shows the 3 dinosaurs we have in our data.json. And if you click on one, it'll go to the dinosaur component, which is just the individual dinosaur, the name, and the description. So we created a very simple app with a back end on Deno and Oak and a front end using Vue, and the whole thing was scaffolded using Vite. From here you can do anything you want. You can like add a persistent data store, MySQL, Postgres, or even like a ORM, Mongoose, Prisma, or you can add authentication, expand on this, make it look nice. I mean, this is extremely bare bones, so yeah, I hope this helps.